Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Y'all get lunch yet? I just got here. Oh, boy. Okay. So, well, I appreciate the opportunity to be here today. What I really want to talk about is the importance of detecting and leveraging emotion in unstructured and structured data. And before I begin, is this working? Oh, yeah, all right. Okay. Before I begin, I feel so fortunate to be in the market today, right? Everything is changing so rapidly before our very eyes. You know, we are just on the verge of entering into a new information era. And when you think about this, when you look at our kids, us in many cases, we're in this broadcast, always-on mode, right? We're not necessarily, people don't have to try and be invasive to us because we're more than happy to tell them everything, you know, that's going on in our lives today. So, so what you find, though, is that it's a really big problem, and it's getting bigger every day. So right now, there's 7 billion people in the world. There's 6 billion mobile handsets. By 2020, it's expected that there's going to be 30 billion mobile wireless connected devices, right? That's nonlinear sensor growth. So think in terms of, you know, iPads, iPhones, you know, all mobile devices. Think of video cameras. Think of everything out there that can possibly detect information. We will be tracked. It will truly be the Minority Report that we're moving into. When you think about the sheer volume of data, back in 2008, there were roughly 800 exabytes of data. Kind of a dimension on that, if you stack CDs stuffed full of data, that'd be about a distance to the moon and a quarter more. When you get to 35,000 exabytes, it's 44x that. So it's a really big number. And the challenge that you have is that, you know, there's a lot going on, but brands see this as both a blessing and a curse. So there's some big companies out there that have made some very strong proclamations about what they want to achieve, right? So Mark Pritchard from Procter & Gamble is one who's come out and said, you know, we will achieve one-to-one brand marketing, right? Joan Lewis has challenged their organization and the market at large to say, you know what, let's get out of our traditional methodology set and let's look at how we can leverage all this information and understand how we can really use it to our advantage. So, you know, the challenge is, though, when we go to clients, you know, they're frustrated and they're impatient right now. And so Seth was talking about all the different tools that are out there. And don't they all look brilliant? You know, they all do. When you look at them on the screen, it's like, wow, look at all those graphs and how the relationships kind of connect together. But the reality is that clients aren't getting that today. Clients aren't seeing a really positive experience. In fact, clients have virtually no confidence in first-generation solutions, the ones that I talk to. When I go into a client, this is a very common conversation that I have. I sit down with them, we kind of talk about what we do. They go, that's really interesting. Let's elevate you up one level in the organization and talk to the people that make decisions. So you sit down with people and they go, listen, we have 4 other vendors in right now. And the problem that we have with all you guys is that you're all wrong. And you're all wrong inconsistently. So when you come in with your new emotions, our question is, are you the 5th version of wrong, right? And that's how clients feel today. Clients are very frustrated because they really do get the sense of, wow, look at all those charts. This stuff must be great. All the operational people inside my research and marketing organizations, go get this stuff and then deliver the results back to me. And they go out and get it. They invest hundreds of thousands of dollars, even millions of dollars. They put infrastructure in. They get human moderation factories in. And they deliver nothing back into the organization unless it's very, very targeted or very, very precise. And so it puts a real burden on everybody in the marketing and research organizations to really understand how we're going to leverage this stuff and make it valuable. So when I go into a client, now, what I get is I'm forced to walk across the hot coals because the first generation guys came in with all the pretty slides and they got all the deals, right? And they're in these client organizations. And now what I get is, hey, listen, you know, it's not just about sentiment. It's about all these other things that we're interested in today. Like, tell me about emotions. Tell me about attribute level analysis. Tell me about conversational drivers. What's actually driving the emotion that I'm seeing so I understand how to engage with somebody. What's the purchase path look like? What do the churn models look like? So clients are taking their game to the next level, and they know, at least smart ones are, they know that they have to because they see the tsunami of information that's going to be coming at them in the very near future. So the deal is, when I talk with clients today, it's no longer about statistical significance. Layering data on data is good, but unless it's actionable, they really don't care because they have a lot of statistical significance today. It's really about getting to that one-to-one level with the brand marketing teams. This is my only slide. I really don't know how to get away from it in terms of what it is that we do. So it's my only Decooda slide, if you will. So what we do is we basically ingest data from any social source. We ingest any form of big data, and then we take in a lot of unstructured data in the form of surveys, transcripts, call center dialogues converted to text, and we analyze that in our big data engine, if you will. And what we essentially do is we have the ability to detect the emotions here at this fine level of granularity. Actually, there's over 20 of them now, and I'm going to get to some more detail on that. We do that to predict sales, measure performance, monitor and route information, and predict engagement, loyalty, and churn. And so it's important that we get to this level of detail because, you know, what Seth was pointing out is that when you get to the emotion level of information, now we can really start to make this much more actionable, right? Because if you think about the abstracted level of thumbs down, right? Irritation, disappointment, confusion, contempt, anger, outrage, right? So does every person in thumbs down get the same type of an engagement? No. That's why human moderation factories exist, because you have products like Radian 6 and Sysomos where data flies out of those things with a thumbs up and thumbs down score. It actually needs some element of cognitive load where somebody actually needs to interpret what it is so I can push it in my Microsoft Exchange server to the appropriate person to do something with it. I can guarantee you when that company bought that product, it wasn't the use case that they thought they were going to be implementing. And so what we want to do is when we're looking at emotions, it's not just about those static emotions that we look at. When we identify an emotion, we're not just looking at it and saying this is frustration. We look at what are the conditions by which people enter frustration? What are the conditions by which people exit frustration? What are the things that will drive them either up or down in that process? Having this information makes it much more actionable. So when we look at emotions, it's not just the emotion, it's looking at something like valence. Valence is the polarity of a particular positive or negative type of a communication. Then we look at arousal. What's the intensity, right? So for remorse or frustration, it's low arousal, low activation. Frustration, it's higher arousal and higher activation. So this is important to understand because now we're getting to the point where this data can actually become usable by a brand marketer. So we get into these discussions with our clients around, let's look at negative affective states just for a moment here. And we say, all right, irritation is less than confusion. Confusion is less than frustration. You know, frustration is less than anger, and so on. And there's a lot of different attributes that are made up within each of those that we also need to pay attention to. The other thing is when you look at a communication, these are just some of the things that you see as you analyze data. If you look at a blog post, you know, 1,000-word blog post, guess what? There's generally more than one emotion, right? They're generally talking about more than one thing. So if you're AT&T, and you're looking at a very long text where somebody's having a very difficult time paying a bill, and you identify all the individual things that they're talking about that irritate them, identify the transition point in that document, and then identify how it was resolved or how it wasn't resolved becomes really valuable. Because now they can then target each of those individual areas. And they can apply kind of an emotional index to that to say, hey, not only is this important, but it's really driving a high degree of passion. So if we're going to invest our time, effort, and energy, this is the area that we really need to explore, right? And that then drives the unique engagement that we want to be focused on. These are just one of the simple tools that we look at. And for anybody that wants something like this is something that we'll be free to share with somebody, and we can walk them through how we can get to this level of detail where you can look at balance, look at arousal, and then look at the outcomes. So now you can start to prioritize when we see certain things happen in conversational text, where should we be spending our time, effort, and energy? And at the end of the day, that's really kind of what we're all about. So from an artificial intelligence perspective, you know, what we had to do is in our own experience is we looked at the purview of this problem, and Seth pointed it out with some of the early work that's been done in the industry. You know, you can't start at a very narrow point, in my opinion. We had to step very, very far back in order to uncover the best method to begin to address some of these challenges that clients have been faced with. So we kind of stepped back out, we connect these dots, and then we kind of drilled in and we started to focus on how we were going to address them. So we believe that there are some AI tools out there. Some of them are domain-specific, some of them are more broad-based that allow us to get to this level of detail. These tools are really important to you as brand marketers or agencies and so on, because with the volume of data that's going to be coming at you as sensor growth continues to go through the roof, you're going to need help, right? You can't afford to have human moderation factories that are going to be looking at not only text, but video and audio and everything else that's in place. I mean, the process of crowdsourcing video is a ridiculous concept to me because it's just not going to be scalable within about the next 5 years, right? It's going to be over because of all the things that we're going to be capturing or all the videos that we're going to be capturing through all the different sensing technologies that are out there. So people need help, people need technologies, and companies need to make companies like ours walk across the hot coals to really increase the value that we can deliver to them. So once you detect and understand emotions, right, then what do you do, right? Well, I had the opportunity to work with John Scully from Pepsi and formerly from Apple. And for those of you that know him, you will agree with me, he is an absolutely amazing person and an incredible brand marketer. And when I was with him, he was talking about one of the best experiences and one of the greatest learnings he ever had from Steve Jobs. And Steve Jobs actually coined that process of, if you're really going to innovate, what you need to do is you need to start by zooming out, connecting the dots, and then zooming back in and innovating. And the point here is how far you zoom out. And how far you zoom out is dependent upon the problem domain set that you're focused on. And my belief is that in the research industry and in the marketing space, we don't zoom out far enough for a wide variety of reasons, right? When you look at analyzing text at the level that we analyze it, it required a significant, well, once we identified how to analyze it, what we determined, as an example, is on any individual post that we analyze, we basically run between 200 and 4,000 algorithms on any single individual post that comes off the web, right? So in order to do that, we solved the problem. We've been able to get some really good insights, but we created another problem. How are we actually going to innovate in order to deliver a real-time experience for our clients? That resulted in us actually developing some hardware that gets embedded in our process that enables us to do this. So my point is that when you solve one problem, don't stop zooming out. Continue to zoom out and look at what the bigger problem is. And the bigger problem then becomes one of, now that I have unstructured data, what's all my structured data that exists within my enterprise that I should be connecting with my unstructured data? This is really where the big money is. This is where the big opportunity is, right? Because what you're going to see is you're going to see unstructured data connected to things like supply chain data, point of sale information, web level data, location-based data, every form of mobile data that exists on the planet. All this is going to come together. We've been working with some companies that have been looking at detecting or using emotions to detect problems in a production process because it's less than a day from the point a product is produced on a production line to the point it actually hits a Walmart shelf. So linking this information becomes very valuable, and then once you have the data from unstructured data and you're linking it with your transactional data, now we can really start to bring the two together and deliver real valuable insights for our clients. So the old way that we were looking at engagement, and the old way that we were using big data, it was traditional data warehousing, right? It's all my traditional structured data that I had. Well, in the future, what it's going to be pulling together the unstructured and structured data to look at, attribute level analysis, to look at features, functions, and every other, element of what it is that we're focused on. So at a high level, that's what we do. We're all about understanding how we can drill into a level of granularity around emotions that makes the data actionable so that brands and agencies can do something with it. Anytime, questions?
So we're still running a few minutes ahead, and Lenny just came by and said we're running a little behind on getting lunch set up as well. So if you were speaker earlier on in this track, please stick around because we're going to do a short Q&A sort of panel discussion at the end. David, I wanted to ask you, one of the questions that just came through to me on Twitter was that you talked a little bit about affective states and how emotion sort of plays into text analytics. And one of the questions that came up was, how do you deal with sarcastic comments that might be a little more tongue-in-cheek and a little harder to figure out from an emotional standpoint?
It's a good question. So it's not just sarcasm; it's irony and deception as well. And so we have a series of models that we're actually focused on developing right now. We have a series of studies that have been done. One kind of additional point along those lines is some people ask us, how do we arrive at the emotion scores that we arrive at? Well, in the academic world, there are a series of academics that have the emotion wheel and many other different methods of identifying or basically drawing distinction between emotions. And we were very uncomfortable with that because we as consumers, we don't speak in academic terms, we speak in consumer terms. And so what we ended up doing is we basically produced a very large crowdsourced study where we asked consumers to tell us emotions that were most prevalent based upon experiences. And we had experience-based analysis, we had product-based analysis, and fairly broad. And so the ones that you see there are the ones that we've actually kind of centered on. There were actually 35 different emotions that consumers talked about that they felt that they were communicating. But then when we went back and did the validation and we actually listened to social media data or survey-based data, we just weren't finding those. So although people were saying they were speaking about it, it just wasn't prevalent enough to identify it. So the ones that we've identified are the ones that we're focused on, and there are many more, like we have 5 personality types and things along those lines that we identified as well.
Cool.
Great.
Great.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.